Christmas had always been my children's favorite day of the year. Not because of the presents. Not because of the decorations. Because every Christmas, our entire family gathered at my parents' house. My two children counted down the days from the moment Thanksgiving ended. They talked endlessly about decorating Grandma's tree, baking cookies with Grandpa, and exchanging silly gifts with their cousins. For them, Christmas wasn't just a holiday. It was home. That was why the phone call from my mother hurt more than anything she'd ever said to me. My name is Melissa Carter. I was 38 years old, a widowed mother of two energetic children, 9-year-old Ethan and 6-year-old Lily. Ever since my husband passed away 3 years earlier, Christmas had become even more important. It was the one day each year when my children forgot, if only for a few hours, how much they missed their father. My parents knew that, which is why I never expected what happened 2 weeks before Christmas. That Tuesday evening, while I was wrapping gifts after the kids had gone to bed, my phone rang. Mom's name appeared on the screen. I smiled as I answered. "Hi, Mom." "Hi, sweetheart." Her voice sounded unusually nervous. "Do you have a minute?" "Of course." There was a long pause. Then she quietly said, "We need to make a small change to Christmas." I laughed. "What kind of change?" Another pause. "Your brother's bringing his new girlfriend." "That's wonderful. I've been looking forward to meeting her." Mom cleared her throat. "Well, she comes from a very refined family." I frowned. "Okay. And?" Mom lowered her voice. "She isn't really used to energetic children." I stared at the wall. "I'm sorry. She prefers quieter gatherings." "I still don't understand." Then came the sentence I never imagined hearing from my own mother. "We think it would be better if Ethan and Lily skipped Christmas this year." For several seconds, I honestly couldn't speak. "My children." "Yes. It's only one Christmas." Mom hurried to explain. "We don't want your brother's girlfriend feeling uncomfortable." I laughed. Not because anything was funny. Because I genuinely couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You want my children excluded from Christmas? Because someone they've never met prefers quiet? It's not like that." "It sounds exactly like that." Mom sighed. "Melissa, please don't make this harder." My voice became very calm. "Have you told the kids yet?" "No." "Good. Because you're not going to." She hesitated. "We've already promised your brother." I felt my heart sink. So this wasn't even a discussion. No. It was a decision. Dad's voice suddenly came through the speakerphone. "Melissa, try to understand. This relationship is serious. We want to make a good impression." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So making a good impression on one guest matters more than your own grandchildren? Neither of them answered. That silence told me everything. I quietly ended the call. For several minutes, I simply sat in my living room staring at the half-wrapped presents beneath the tree. Then I heard tiny footsteps. Lily stood in the hallway rubbing her sleepy eyes. "Mommy, who were you talking to?" I quickly forced a smile. "Grandma." She smiled. "Did she say what cookies we're making this year?" I swallowed hard. "Not yet." She yawned. "I can't wait." Neither could I, until 10 minutes earlier. The next morning, Ethan climbed into the car carrying a notebook. "I made my Christmas list. You want to hear it?" "Always." He smiled. "Number 1. I want everyone to be together." I gripped the steering wheel a little tighter. He continued reading. "Number 2. I hope Grandpa lets me help with the fireplace this year." I looked out the windshield so he wouldn't see the tears forming in my eyes. How was I supposed to tell him that the people he loved most had decided he wasn't welcome? Over the next few days, I kept hoping my parents would call back. I convinced myself they'd realize how hurtful their decision had been. Instead, Mom texted me the Christmas dinner menu, as though nothing had happened. As though excluding 2 children was simply another scheduling detail. 3 days later, my brother Jason finally called. "I heard you're upset." I laughed quietly. "Upset? That's one word for it." He sighed. "You're overreacting." "Really? It's just one Christmas." I couldn't believe those words came from the man who had spent every Christmas beside my children since they were born. "Ethan worships you. Lily made you a handmade ornament." "I know. So how could you agree to this?" He hesitated. "Claire's family celebrates differently. We're trying to make her comfortable. And making my children feel rejected is acceptable? It isn't like that. It is exactly like that." We ended the conversation without resolving anything. That evening, while helping Ethan finish his homework, he suddenly asked, "Mom?" "Yes." "Grandma called today." My stomach tightened. "What did she say?" "She asked if I'd finished making Grandpa's Christmas card." He smiled proudly. I drew all of us together. He held up the picture. Grandma, Grandpa, Uncle Jason, me, him, Lily. One big smiling family standing around a Christmas tree. Looking at that drawing, I realized something. My children still believed they belonged. I wasn't going to let anyone take that feeling away. As I tucked them into bed that night, I made myself one quiet promise. If my parents had chosen appearances over family, then this Christmas, I would create a new tradition my children would never forget. Even if it meant celebrating without the people who had always claimed family came first. The morning after my parents told me my children weren't welcome for Christmas, I stopped waiting for an apology. Instead, I started making a plan. If Ethan and Lily couldn't spend Christmas surrounded by family, then I would make sure they spent it surrounded by love. The two aren't always the same thing. That afternoon, I sat at my kitchen table with a notebook and began writing ideas. At the top of the page, I wrote one sentence. No child should ever feel unwanted on Christmas. The words stayed in my mind all day. That evening, after the children were asleep, I opened my social media account. I didn't mention my parents. I didn't mention my brother. I didn't complain. Instead, I shared a photograph of the Christmas tree in our living room and wrote, "This year, my children and I unexpectedly have extra seats at our Christmas table. If you know someone who has nowhere to go for Christmas, a widow, a single parent, an elderly neighbor, a college student far from home, or anyone spending the holiday alone, our door is open. No one should celebrate Christmas feeling unwanted." I closed my phone and went to bed. I expected maybe a few friends to comment. Instead, I woke up to hundreds of messages. People from my neighborhood shared the post. Local community groups reposted it. One woman wrote that her elderly father had spent every Christmas alone since losing his wife. A young nurse said she had just moved to town and knew no one. A military spouse explained that her husband was overseas and she dreaded spending Christmas by herself. Another message came from a recently divorced father who wouldn't have his children until the following week. Each story reminded me that loneliness wears many different faces. By Christmas Eve, our small dinner for three had become something much bigger. Neighbors began knocking on my door. One family delivered 2 homemade pies. A bakery owner dropped off fresh bread and dozens of cookies. Someone anonymously left wrapped presents on my porch addressed simply, "For any child who needs an extra smile." The local grocery store donated a turkey after hearing about our gathering. My living room slowly filled with kindness from people who had never even met us. Ethan looked around in amazement. "Mom, why is everyone helping us?" I smiled. Because kindness grows when someone chooses to share it. Christmas morning arrived bright and cold. Instead of waking up feeling disappointed, my children ran downstairs laughing. Our tree was surrounded by gifts, not expensive ones, but thoughtful ones. By noon, guests began arriving. Mrs. Henderson from 3 houses down came carrying her famous apple pie. A college student named Mia brought homemade ornaments. An elderly widower named Frank arrived with a photo album of Christmases past. The young nurse brought hot chocolate for everyone. Within an hour, our once quiet home was filled with laughter. Children played board games on the living room floor. Adults shared stories around the fireplace. People who had been strangers only days earlier were helping each other set the table. As I looked around the room, something became clear. This wasn't the Christmas I had planned. It was better. Just as everyone sat down for dinner, the doorbell rang again. I opened the door and froze. My parents stood outside. Behind them were my brother Jason and his girlfriend, Claire. No one spoke for a moment. Finally, Mom whispered, "We saw your post." I nodded. So did a lot of people. Tears filled her eyes. We made a terrible mistake. Dad looked past me into the house. He saw Ethan helping Frank carve the turkey. He saw Lily laughing while decorating cookies with the nurse. He quietly asked, "Who are all these people?" I smiled. "Family." He looked confused. "I don't understand." "They're people who needed somewhere to belong today." Claire suddenly stepped forward. Her face looked pale. "I need to tell you something." Everyone became quiet. She looked directly at me. "I never asked for your children to be excluded." I frowned. "What?" She shook her head. "Your parents told me they wanted a quieter dinner because the children would probably be happier celebrating at home. I never said they were too chaotic." She looked at Ethan and Lily playing together. "I love children. I volunteer at a children's hospital every month." My brother slowly lowered his head. "I thought Mom and Dad were just trying to impress you." Claire's eyes filled with tears. They embarrassed me instead. Mom covered her face. We thought we were doing the right thing. No, I answered quietly. You were doing the easier thing. There was a long silence. Then Ethan noticed his grandparents standing at the door. His face lit up. Grandma. He ran toward her without hesitation and wrapped his arms around her. Mom immediately broke down crying. I'm so sorry. She hugged him tightly. I'm so sorry. Lily joined them seconds later. Watching my children forgive so quickly reminded me of something adults often forget. Children don't hold on to pride. They simply want to feel loved. I stepped aside and opened the door wider. Come in. Dad looked surprised. After everything we did? I nodded. It's Christmas. But understand something. This never happens again. He looked directly into my eyes. It won't. Dinner that afternoon became unlike anything I had ever experienced. Old neighbors laughed with complete strangers. Children opened donated presents together. People exchanged phone numbers and promised to stay in touch after the holidays. Before everyone left, Frank quietly stood and raised his glass. I've spent 5 Christmases alone. He smiled toward me. Today reminded me that family isn't always the people we're born into. Sometimes it's the people who choose to make room at their table. No one spoke. Many simply wiped away tears. Months later, several of the guests from that Christmas still met regularly. Friendships had formed. Support systems had grown. People who once felt isolated now celebrated birthdays, graduations, and holidays together. As for my parents, they spent the next year earning back the trust they had nearly lost. Not with expensive gifts. Not with promises. With consistency. They showed up. They attended school plays, soccer games, dance recitals, ordinary Tuesdays. The small moments that truly matter. Looking back, people often ask if I regret posting that invitation. Never. Because my children learned something that Christmas I could never have taught them with words alone. Real class isn't measured by expensive clothes, elegant dinners, or impressing important guests. Real class is making sure no child, no neighbor, and no stranger ever feels like they don't belong at your table. And sometimes the most beautiful Christmas begins the moment someone opens their door just a little wider.